Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's device management interface call. Thanks for joining. As usual, the call is public and recorded and will be shared live on YouTube, so please be mindful of the comments you make and the information you share with the group. First of all, I'd like to thank Radisys for the huge contributions they're making lately to the effort of the device manager and the device management agent. If you guys want to recap the progress for everybody, Chandra, Babu, whoever wants and prefers to maybe give an update, be happy to. I think everybody can hear that.
Sure, Andrea. Hello, everyone. This is Chandrakant here. Would like to thank Andrea and the DMI Brigade for all the reviews and inputs. So last couple of weeks on the DMI interface, we submitted the proposal on the gRPC streams for events and metrics, and also related health check procedure to identify the node reachability and re-establish the streams whenever there is a connection break because of device reboot or maybe a network glitch that existed for some considerable amount of time. So those two proposals were reviewed and merged. Thanks very much. And on the open DM agent, we have raised the first patch set that contains the README, makefile, and the building instructions and the required header files for managing the hardware RPCs with a gRPC server up and running. So this patch set is submitted and we have been receiving the review comments from the Brigade. On the OpenDM agent, one item that we would like to discuss further is on using the OpenOLT test Docker build environment to be able to carry out the G test and the mock tests and enable the Jenkins integration qualifications that maybe subsequently we'll discuss with the Brigade. And coming to the Open Device Manager, we have submitted the first patch set with a README makefile and a gRPC server towards the NEM components and client towards the device, and required data structures for managing the devices as an aggregator, and etcd Kafka related modules, and some of the hardware management RPCs we have brought in the first patch set, wherein you will be able to test end-to-end, making a call from the northbound, maybe through gRPC curl, invoking the device manager's northbound interface, that translating towards the southbound again on the gRPC, wherein we have used the BBSIM to simulate the device. We were able to execute end-to-end RPC procedures from NEM towards the device. So this code also is being submitted for the review. We have been getting the inputs and we are working on addressing the same. So this is in summary, overall, we are working on the DMI. Thanks for the opportunity, Andrea.
Thanks, Chandra. That's great. There was a couple of there was another point that I think we needed to discuss, which is the automated build of the OpenDM agent. If I'm not mistaken, I think I discussed it briefly with Beru yesterday. I'm not sure if he's on the call or not. Otherwise, I can provide some input on that.
Yes, like as per yours and Girish's inputs, we went through how it is done for OpenOLT. We see that there is a separate OpenOLT test repo that hosts the makefile and the Docker file to have all the required dependencies and packages installed for the test build environment. And the OpenOLT, they have created a static library, and that static library is linked for the unit testing using the G-test. And for each of the methods that are there in the OpenOLT, there is a test method, and val is mocked using the mock objects. So we went through that, and we would like to leverage the same for our OpenDM agent as well. And for our OpenDM agent, we would like to use the same Docker file, as the build dependencies are mostly the same.
Okay. Sounds good.
And considering to the OpenDM agent, in general, the OpenOLT agent also, how it is done is on the host machine, the overall Open Network Linux has been will be cloned, and that will be used to build the ONL Docker image, and that Docker image will be further used to build the required libraries such as ONLP, and make the libraries available on the host mount volume, and that libraries will be further used to compile the OpenOLT Debian package. So this is the procedure they have in the OpenOLT. On the similar lines, even for our OpenDM agent, we would like to have the same, which requires both dependencies on the host machine as well as the Docker environment to be able to compile the required libraries such as ONLP. So here we need some guidance and support from the ONF.
Yeah, so the issue there is that we would need to go and put Docker, as far as I understand, in our building environment, which is not something we have for anything else. So I was wondering, the OpenOLT agent gets built manually, meaning that when we need to build it for the OLTs, Girish goes and builds it manually, following the procedure. Um, so what you would like to achieve is instead that we are capable of automatically building that OpenDM agent and maybe even possibly automatically publish it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it is. I would say it is good to have, but not a mandatory. We can stay with the procedure that is currently followed for OpenOLT agent. We can have a manual procedure. Maybe further, if need arise, we can continue. But what I would like to understand, even for the static library, the OpenOLT.a, we might have some dependencies, such as libraries that may have to be compiled on the ONL Docker.
I see. I okay. I'm not sure. Can we take this offline, maybe with the help of Girish?
Yeah, that will be better. Yeah, maybe we can have a separate call. We'll discuss how it's done for OpenOLT and see we can do the same here as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
And yeah, so if I gave some comments to the OpenDM agent and I still have to go through the Open Device Manager patch. Sorry if I've taken some time to do that. It's just that I didn't really have a lot of time, and so I'll have to do that. Some of this stuff is already done, and yeah, all of this is done. Yeah, go ahead.
On the Open Device Manager unit test framework, we would like to leverage the same way it is done for Volta. That is in progress. The unit test mock test framework is work in progress.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks. Awesome. Okay. There was some discussion upon configuration and reconnection. Do we need to do anything on that? I think we do have the heartbeat check, and we could leverage that. Is that correct, or is there anything else more needed in the interface?
Yeah, I think yes, that is sufficient. Like the heartbeat check to understand the connectivity break and re-establish the streaming sessions with the context. So we are good. Thanks.
Okay.
One thing we want to bring in is like some of the northbound systems might want to know about the last restart cause, whether it is something that was triggered by the CPLD or FPGA or something from the software watchdog restart or something that hard reboot. So it would help if we can have reboot indication mentioning the last restart cause.
Interesting. Can we have that in the reason field of the reboot I forgot if we have it or not.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything with the reboot as of now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What are your thoughts, Amit? Should we include something like that? And if so, where really?
Yeah, it has to be an event. So I have not
We
heard
do
of.
have this device reset, which we could use.
Yes, that is one option. But I think what Chandra is saying is that he would want to pass some more information along with that as well, right?
Well, you do have the reason. When you get the event, no, maybe.
Event metadata, event IDs. Yeah, there is that additional info regarding the event that's there. It's
We'll just throw it in there.
It's a string.
So normally, like the reset and reboot are taken separately.
Okay.
So reboot, it just rebooted, but the configuration may still be there. Reset is something that it went into clean slate.
Okay.
Please correct if you have
Okay.
different.
Do you think we need a reboot event here? Amit, Holger, thoughts?
I'm just thinking about how, if you have an external device manager like ours, how should the device manager know what the reason for the reboot was? I mean, he will only see a connection loss.
You could leave it empty.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just an additional information that could be there, could not be there. It's not guaranteed. It's not something that we encoded. You will throw an event for the reboot. I think that's valuable. But the reason, if you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. So the only thing that I think we should clarify is at what point should this event be sent out? Because with the two architectures, it becomes different, right? When it is running on the box, on the OLT versus an external device manager. The external device manager will know once it loses the connectivity that the device is gone, or maybe only after it comes back, it will know. But in the case of the OpenDM agent, it can send the event only after it has come back up.
I think that for you to say that a device is rebooted, you really have to wait until the device comes back.
Okay.
Because otherwise, you're signaling a reboot for a device that is not really there. So you don't know if it's rebooted or is actually only gone.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, we are just checking in some of the cases. Let's say if it is a northbound initiated reboot, or let's say if it is a power shutdown externally, it might be that device has some room to send across this notification and then go down gracefully. Not in all cases it is guaranteed, but in some cases it might have some room to send out a notification and then go down.
And by the way, we already have the information in the inventory when the last reboot happened. So you could query it. I'm not sure if there's really a need for for an event.
You're saying that
Did we put that in the inventory?
Yeah, by the way, I wanted to update the minutes, and because I promised an example for the inventory, which I have available, but I wasn't able to put it into the document. I'm not sure if this is only possible for.
Let me see.
So I could not edit. How can I put a simple text document in this one here? Is this possible?
It is. I'm wondering why you're not.
He complained that it's not a proper picture, so it's.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the last booted, not really. Yeah. Yeah, so my bad. So there is a field for the last boot time.
Oh, so okay, so it's actually there. Where is it?
If you go into hw.proto and look for the hardware message, the top level message. Towards the end of the file. Just, yeah, line 287. Yeah, but I think, okay, so this is when the northbound guys want to figure out when the device booted last, so this could be used. But what Chandra is saying is he wants to send out a notification, essentially an event saying that, okay, the device has come back up or the device has rebooted with a specific cause. Do we still have that requirement?
Yes, Amit. Especially when there is a larger deployments wherein you may not have to like poll. If event appears automatically, it helps.
Okay, so I think what we could do is this definitely needs to be populated. That's one. But we could also add, even though the RFC does not include it, an event here. Because I remember this were just taken from the BBF document, right, Amit? BBF ITF.
I can't recall where the events and metrics as in the source for them. It should be somewhere, yeah, somewhere in the BBF stuff, I would assume.
So I would say just add it here. Just device rebooted. And if you want, you can use the reason field here.
The additional
info field, yes. Please, whenever you add this, also do add some documentation. I forgot to ask it for the heartbeat. So please add some of the documentation around two things that we already merged and I forgot to ask for documentation. One is for the streaming gRPC service, gRPC streams. Please add the documentation in here. And the second one is for the heartbeat. Please add the documentation. And whenever you add the reboot event, please add the documentation of that one as well.
Sure, noted. We'll do so.
Thanks, Chandra.
And next point we wanted to bring in is, do you see any need for RPC for doing a northbound triggered reboot?
So that I do think we have via Volta.
Okay.
Via the OpenOLT agent. But might be that we can also do it through the device manager. Holger, do you have such use case in yours?
I'm in favor of it, so I think it should be part of a device manager.
Okay, Amit, I don't have anything in contrary to that because Volta will just see it as a reboot, so that's okay.
Yeah, but okay, so my question would be that as in how does the user know which path to take? Because it can reboot the device through both the paths.
Good question. I guess it's a choice of the operator. We don't particularly care.
But also, does it make sense that you give options for doing the same action through two different paths?
To me, we should not have it in Volta, but that's a whole another story. But we cannot take it out from Volta because it's valuable to have it there and do these operations even though you don't have a device manager.
Then at least we could make those RPCs or the implementation of those RPCs configurable in Volta, right? Saying that, okay, you can, when you are, bringing up the vCore, you can say that, okay, vCore don't have the device management functionalities, just as a runtime configuration, right? So if you call those, you get an unimplemented or some kind of an error. In that case, the DMI can serve those requests. But having it on both the paths, I'm not sure. I don't know if it will be a problem, but yeah, if someone is really bent upon playing around with the system, maybe get into crazy situations.
Yeah, I'm not really in favor of having configurable which APIs Volta Core has. I think that's going to start causing problems later. It'd be more convenient if it was in both. If we wanted to remove the reboot from Volta Core API, I think you have to deprecate it for a release or so and then remove it. Just kind of make it an option.
So deprecating it sounds fine to me, but then what we would be indirectly inferring is that if you use Volta, you have to have an implementation of the DMI as well, because certain operations which are definitely needed will no longer be supported by Volta, but has to be supported by an implementation of the DMI.
Again, I'm not sure I'm advocating for deprecating it, but I'm saying rather than make it optional, you either deprecate it, remove it, or keep it in both places.
I would say we properly document it and keep it in both places. I mean, what's really the downside is that the user might choose one or the other.
As long as I want to say the same result with all the same state changes, independent of which way the reboot comes in, I think we're okay. It's only going to be an issue if I call it through the DMI, it somehow confuses the internal state of the core, or if I call it through the core, it confuses the internal state of DMI. There could be some interesting use cases around that. Because let's say today you talked about the reason earlier, right? A reboot reason. Well, if I reboot through Volta, no DMI state has changed. So rather than have a reason reboot information from the last reboot, I have it kind of from the reboot before the last reboot that happened to the DMI. Right? There is some inconsistent state between the two, it seems like we've already found.
Is it? Well, the reason might be just rebooted from outside. I don't get what the inconsistent state is. Sorry.
Will the DMI recognize what happens to the DMI state when it reboots via the core? does the DMI state know that it rebooted? Does it have some state within it that it all of a sudden is just unaware of something happened?
I think it's going to be up to the device to report something. And it's also just an additional information. It's not mandatory. So if the device or the implementer doesn't know what to do with it, it just doesn't say it.
But here, let's say I reboot a device via the DMI interface and the reason field's populated, right? And then I go and reboot the device from the core interface.
Mhm.
Is that reason field still populated from the first reboot? When was it cleared? Or was it cleared?
So the reason or the additional info is a field in the event that was raised for the first reboot. So that event is old now and we don't look into it anymore.
But you
What
don't know it's old because the reboot happened from the core.
What Amit
Right.
is saying is that we don't save that information. You either have it and put it into the event and just drop it, or you don't
Yeah.
keep it.
So it's only in an event, it's not in a state anymore.
Yeah.
Then I think that'll be that inconsistency. Again, I just don't know if there's going to be, if I reboot via core, if DM state is some DM state somewhere somehow consistent. I don't know. I don't know the reverse either. If I reboot via the DMI, is some state in the core no longer correct? It's a concern, I think, but I don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
And maybe no one cares, right? Just
That's something that came to mind. Maybe it's okay to have it in both, and I guess this is something also that the operator kind of chooses a path once and keeps it that way for his deployment. Because I don't expect this to happen via CLI of either Volt CTL or DMI CTL, which we don't have. I expect this to happen via gRPC by NEM or other components, and thus the implementation of that gRPC call is going to be one for that operator, and thus I don't expect that to change.
yeah, the question is, are we going to see more overlap like this as we go forward? I don't know.
Oh, I bet. My bet is this, yes. But we can treat it once it comes every time, I think, on a case-to-case basis.
I mean, in addition, somebody could just log into the box and do the reboot on the box. I mean, and both have to be able to cope with this situation.
Yeah. So to
Yep,
me,
very true.
to me, the reboot done from the DMI to the device will seem as to Volta as if it was rebooted via SSH into the box reboot. And that is supported by Volta as of today. So I don't think we're going to get inconsistency in the behavior if we insert the API and implement it.
Okay.
Okay.
And I mean, the same would be for a software update. Do you expect that the device gets deleted from Volta before doing a software update, or can it still be enabled and you just a software update via device manager and Volta has to handle the situation?
To me, it could do both. Definitely this needs to be tested, but to me, you could just go ahead and update the device via the device manager, and Volta will see it as a reboot of the device, and it will come up with new software.
Okay.
And in the reboot of the device, Volta assumes that the configuration is gone, so it will repush the configuration, which is good, which is okay.
Yep.
But operators might decide to delete it. For example, if Amit, correct me if I'm wrong, DT actually deletes the device from Volta on a reboot.
No,
No?
no, not the OLT.
Not the OLT, only the ports? The ONUs?
Only the ONUs, yeah.
Only the ONUs, I see. Okay, well, that was my bad. Okay, well, the end result is the same. The configuration will be repushed.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I think, Chandra, you can include the Reboot API if you're interested in the DM interface. Just push it up as a patch. Please do include some documentation in that patch, specifying some of the things we just discussed. That it to every other system it will be observed as a reboot of the device triggered by external entities, and that yeah, the operator's choice to use this or Volta or whatever.
Sure, Andrea.
Okay, thanks.
And next thing I want to just bring up for discussion is persistency of the events on the device. As we have chosen to persist all the configuration and states on the device so that it can sustain across the reboot and restore by itself, so that NEM can also directly manage the device and states. So one related question with respect to the persistency of events. We see two different types of events. One is hardware events, such as transceiver failure or transceiver plugout, PSU or fan plugout. And there are second category of events, which are threshold cross alert events, like transceiver RX bar above threshold or CPU temperature above critical. So two types of events we have. And regarding the events, how to be managed, we have two options in front of us. One is device to persist all the active events across the reboot, and once it comes back post reboot, it can sense the current device status and also audit all the active events and clear the ones which are for which the condition no longer exists, and additionally raise the ones which are not active, not already reported to the northbound systems. This is one option wherein device completely takes care by itself, and NEM doesn't have to be worried about duplicate events or flood of events. The second option is device need not keep track of events, and every time it comes back after a reboot, it can go through all its inventory and detect for any anomalies and raise the events afresh. But this requires the northbound systems such as NEM to ignore the duplicates or handle it appropriately. So would like to get the guidance from the community, which option will be more apt, considering both category of hardware and threshold cross alert events.
I have some thoughts, but I like to open the floor first.
I think I would push the logic to NEM. I mean, NEM will get a notification that there was a reboot, and then NEM can do whatever it wants with the events, can clear everything. And so I wouldn't do anything on the device.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, because you could keep the device implementation simpler this way, and you just send everything up. The question I have is, do we even send events that are raised and then cleared? Those maybe we don't. But not sure.
Raised. So when the device come back, it will just scan through all its inventory, and wherever there is a alarm condition, it will freshly raise all those events.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
something,
Yeah.
okay. So your question is like there is a disconnect with the northbound and some event happened and it recovered. So is device expected to rise clear, or it can just ignore because condition is normal now?
I think condition is normal. You can skip it. I think that would be my choice.
Okay.
Anybody else?
There are some advantages I see if we report the things as they happen or as they happened in some sequence, right? So that maybe northbound users, maybe it's a vendor or operator, will get more insight what happened. Although condition no longer exists, but something that it went through can serve some purpose. Let's say some conditions, right? Some operators will be interested to know number of occurrences for each alarm. If it is happening very frequently, then they might want to do some maintenance on that hardware, maybe replacement of a transceiver if it is happening very frequently. So such alarms, if they keep happening, it's better to raise and clear, and additionally maybe increment the number of occurrences for that particular hardware, so that they come to know, okay, it is very happening very frequently or happening like very rarely, and anything that they have to attend to, they will come to know.
Well, if we care about it happening very frequently, it should be seen also very frequently after the reboot. Am I correct?
Yes.
So I wouldn't worry too much about it and just say that, I don't know, 5 occurrences, 10 occurrences that you missed during the reboot. Well, if it happens very frequently, when very frequently to me is like every second, every 10 seconds, every 60 seconds, it's, you see it, you get it, and you decide upon it independently if you miss like some during a reboot.
Okay, so considering that the time for which the reboot happens, so it's okay to purge the things and just raise the active alarms is what you're suggesting.
That would be my choice.
Okay. And how about the connectivity broken for some considerable time and later the connectivity is re-established with the device? And let's say device will persist all those alarms or events that happened in that meanwhile. So there also you want to use the same, like if condition no longer exists, you don't bother reporting.
I would say so, but unless I'm missing something, I would say let's treat everything the same.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. I think I have
So
go ahead.
just to summarize on that, just my understanding. So I think what we decided is that events that are, so the device keeps on reporting events, and we have 2 types of events right now, especially on the threshold based events, which is the event itself, and then we have another one saying recovered, right? But what we are saying is that if we get a reboot event, before getting the recovered event, right? Then we would consider that all those events have recovered, or we don't know. They don't, okay, they have recovered or they no longer persist. If they still persist, then we would expect new events to come again.
Yes. a diff of existing event prior to a reboot and events after a reboot is what tells you what events got cleared during the reboot.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's not necessarily that all of them have been cleared. Some of them might have been cleared and some of them might not have been cleared.
Yeah.
So then how do we know for which ones we should keep waiting?
You know, so you have a set of events that arrived prior to a reboot, okay? Let's say 10 events. The reboot happens. Then, after the reboot, 6 events arrive. Those 4, that is the difference between the 10 initial ones and the 6 ones that arrive after the reboot, or the ones that got cleared during the reboot? Or am I mistaking your question?
Yeah, I am getting it. Okay. So effectively, what would happen from an implementation perspective is that instead of implementing it in the device, we have to implement it in the NEM, the persistence of all these events.
Well,
And
I would expect the NEM keeps what events are raised from a device.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't, well, it means he's okay not acting upon some of them, because if you don't keep an event, it means that you don't want to act upon it. Because if you want to act upon something, you need to keep it, keep a time for it, like all of that.
Now, if you look at the way right now things are, NEM does not need to maintain the list of active events, right? Because it is getting the recovered events. So it has a copy of all the events that came, right? Because it would be stored somewhere, but it does not need to maintain which are the active ones and which have been closed.
No, but even here,
What we have as of today.
It doesn't, even here, it doesn't have to keep what have been closed, just the active ones.
Okay, I think it's okay for now. I will need to think a little bit more on this. But I think that's okay. If we say that the NEM is to take care of it, it can be done in the NEM as well, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one specific case I want to bring up that Amit highlighted in the last meeting is, let's say, device raised the transceiver RX power above threshold, and it went for a reboot. And after it came back, it sees that the RX power is normal, but there is an active alarm on the northbound. So if we put a expectation on the NEM to clear all the events, especially the threshold cross events after a reboot, and let the device re-report all the events if at all the condition still persists. If we go with that understanding, then yes, we can stay with this discussed approach. But if there are active alarms that still hanging on the NEM, that will be something that we need to take care. If NEM can always clear all the TCA after the device reboots, it's good, because device is anyway going to re-raise again. But I clearly see advantage of having the alarms from the latest events, basically the latest events, so that you can correlate with the required logs or component status. So it is easy. The latest is always better. Maybe if you can put on a NEM requirement that on the reboot, you can just purge all the alarms, especially the TCA alarms. Let the device re-report it fresh. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so what I understand is the same, right? What you're saying is that once the device reboots, you can consider it as a clean slate and start taking the new events from the device.
Yes, Amit.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that should be okay.
That
Okay.
will be more cleaner and more latest. Yeah.
Do you mind, Chandra, document these conclusions that we reached in the docs here, possible in the events and metrics here? Just add some of the elements we discussed below this part. Can you do that?
Sure, Andrea. I'll some
Thanks.
capture.
Awesome.
By the way, our device manager is not working that way. So our device manager is always clearing alarms when he notices that the device reboots. But it's running outside of the device, so it's easier.
Yeah. So what you do, you
yeah.
completely purge all the alarms.
Yeah.
And you expect the device to send them back to you.
Yeah, the device actually has a list of active alarms, and I query the list of active alarms, and then I compare to the alarms I already sent. And if there are alarms missing, then we will generate the alarms or clear alarms or whatever is needed. So,
Which is precisely what we said here.
Yeah. So I think the only challenge, I mean, we have a list of alarms on the device which we can query. If you do not have this list, then you will run in, I think it will not be possible to get into the right state, because you can never know what happened. I mean, you could even not see the reboot event from the device if the connection was lost for some time, for example. I think it's, sorry, I'm confusing, but I think it's complicated. So I think in general, you probably have to query the information on the device to get the current state, if possible.
Yeah, thanks, Oliver. So a couple of things here. So I think we should try and see that from an interface perspective, if you can have consistent behavior across different implementations, right? From an interface perspective as to what the northbound or the NEM should expect, irrespective of it working on or with a device which has a DM or a device where the DM is directly on the box. I think that would help. But yeah, I think that's something we should try to or strive to get to. Because what I'm seeing in this case is, in one case, we will get the reboot event and say that, okay, because we have got a reboot event, so let's forget about all the events that we had from this device. And in the other case, we will get the reboot event, but along with that, we will get clear of all the events that were outstanding or all the active events. And this would be done by the DM. That's what I understand. So the behavior that the NEM would see would be different depending on the implementations. So that's one part. The other is, I think, just as a standalone thing, if the device is able to generate both the event and the recovered or the clear, I think it's good, but I think it's not mandatory. It depends on the choice we make. But I think the first point, if you could have a consistent behavior, I think that should help.
So what are you?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, maybe we can have a mail chain. Maybe we can allow it to sync in and come back with different scenarios and see what best we can.
Okay. Yep. In the meantime, Holger sent me the example configuration and hardware inventory from their stuff. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna go ahead and create a file in here with that.
Because there's really no option to add a file in Google Docs, right? It looks like you only can add links or images, but not.
Well, you should be able to just paste it, but that's a whole.
Yeah, but it's a long one. It's a really long one.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So let me just copy it from your chat that you sent me. And I'm just gonna go ahead. When you have to do it, you do it like this. You create a new file.
You can just upload copy the doc to Google Docs.
Yeah, you could also do it, but it's a TXT file. You could do it, and then whatever you do, you just put this and just copy it there. Oh, okay. So Chandra, if you can see it, Babu, everybody, you can go and take a look at it here.
Yeah, thanks, Holger. Thanks, Olivia.
Any specific thing that they need to know, Holger?
No, this was just an example so that I can see how we are doing it. I do not think that there's only one way to do it, but this is how we're doing it.
Okay.
And we already changed it several times after discussions with Amit, so it might get changed again at some point in time if it's required.
Yep.
Or perhaps just one thing, we are using something like a chassis. So it looks like our OLT is a chassis-based system which has line cards. Actually, it's not, but we're using the same modeling for different devices, and we're using this modeling here as well. So you have a root component, and then you have a chassis, which is a child of the root component, and then you have a main module, a main board, which is a child of the chassis, and this is specific to our way of modeling right now.
Yes, so Chandra, I think this will give you a good example of how you could do it, but ultimately the model that you have would depend on the exact hardware that you're using, right? Because you might have more pluggable components or less pluggable components in terms of the fans, the PSUs and things like that.
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah, and also it might not have those line cards and things like that. So yeah, so you could take this as an example and work through this, but I think the important thing is that the parent-child relationship needs to be maintained so that you could traverse through the tree.
Yeah.
Sure, thanks.
Okay. Guys, I would have to end the meeting here. I have another meeting upcoming in the next few minutes, so unfortunately, I have to take a 1-minute break between the two meetings just to settle a few things. So there were a few topics that were left here. I think we can discuss them next time. And we have already a lot of stuff going on that we can continue working for the amount of time that we have. I know there is also another topic that I wanted to discuss, which is versioning of the API. And we'll do that next time. And I'll keep an eye on the versioning for the time being. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And
thank you.
Next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thanks. Have a nice one.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.